Questions you never thought you could have. Questions you never thought you could have. Questions you never thought you could have.
No, man. It's going to give you a bear
Questions you never thought you
And it opens up your whole world, doesn't it?
in church.
I like clapping. We're on, right? Are we on?
We're on.
We're on. Wow, we are on. Well, welcome to the show today, everybody. We have in-house today, we've got a man with so much knowledge, even the angels come to him with questions they just can't wrap their wings around. Pastor David Gadini.
Andrew Beck.
Hey, all right. Next, better not challenge his authority on worship technologies, otherwise he's sure to light you up. Oh, so bad, isn't it? But let's clap for that one too. All right, Andrew Metcalf is in the house.
Hello.
And our producer, the man with the ability to mute you with the push of a button. Some say he's power hungry. I say maybe he's just hungry. Someone get him some chicken wings with some bones. Our producer, Kent Jones. Hey, all right. Welcome to the show, everyone. Dave is here. Let's listen to this for a minute. Love this song. But anyway, all right. Dave is really anxious to get to the digits because that's what he does.
I think you're more anxious than anyone here, Steve. And why don't we get an intro for you? Like, I think you crafted this all week. I mean, what's your
Literally
intro?
in the shower today.
In the shower today. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
I told Barbie, I said, I'm going to go take a shower and I need to do some brainstorming in there. She's like, I think all the time in the shower. I'm like, I know, that's the best place for it. No one's bothering you. It's an echo chamber of sorts, so it's like, I'm just going to do it.
Have you ever thought about getting like those wax markers, the erasable markers, but you can use them in water? I thought about this in the wall of our shower because you're sitting there, you're getting ideas, you got to take the notes, and
Actually,
by the
that's a
time
great
you
idea.
jump out and your hands wet and you're pen on paper, it's sopping through and it just doesn't work.
I'm picturing an office building, in their conference rooms they put up dry erase walls.
Yeah, right.
But it's just a big shower.
Multi-head kind of thing. Yeah, right.
It'd be like the boys' locker room, but just of ideas. You know what I'm saying? You have a staff meeting in the same situation.
Come on, guys, we're going to shower.
Hold on, I got to rinse.
Someone get my back.
Someone, what's that? Loofah?
Yeah,
loofah?
right.
Back's a little itchy. Can you grab that?
Yeah.
The brainstorming loofah, pass it around.
You can't talk right now. You don't have the loofah.
Ideas you never thought you could have in church.
Ideas you never thought. Yeah, right.
That's good. That's good.
Well, guys, we want to thank you for tuning in today. This is the podcast where we invite you to text in your questions on God, on Jesus, on Christianity, on the Bible, on the spiritual life. Anything goes. There's so many people that I've met over the course of my ministry who walk around with these unanswered questions because they're simply afraid to ask them. Maybe you think you're going to be judged by asking the question, reveal a certain sense of ignorance or naivety by your question. Maybe you think it's too far out of the box. Maybe you think that you're the only person who's ever had a question. Maybe you think it's so off the rails that it's not even worthy to be asked. Maybe you think it's too simple to be asked or too complex to be asked. This is the podcast that no matter what it is, we just encourage you to ask it because we think God wants you to ask questions. And we think that if you have the questions, it's a sign of wrestling sincerely with your faith, with God, with what he's doing in your life. So you can text those in to 815-314-0363. Again, 815-314-0363. If you're watching us on the net, 216 The Net, following us on Facebook, you can post your questions right there on the feed, be it 216 The Net's feed or Fellowship of Faith. Whichever method you choose, they'll come to us. We do our best every episode to get to as many of them as we can. If we don't, though, they are in our inbox and they'll come back around. Andrew, you're back with us today.
I am.
Yes.
It's weird being out for a couple weeks.
So
I'm happy to be
where
back.
have you been for the last 2 weeks?
Well, I was sick.
Our audience wants to know.
I was sick 2 weeks ago, and I appreciate the prayers on the podcast.
Yes,
that was
we
great.
did.
And then last week I was with my family for Thanksgiving.
And we prayed for you during that time too.
Perfect. I appreciate it. All the prayers are always welcome.
We all need prayers when we go to visit family at Thanksgiving.
Everyone needs a prayer army of 200,000 people.
There you go.
You are now anointed. Good for you. Yeah. So what I'm noticing though, while the questions come in, I'm noticing 3 things. Because you usually don't wear that shirt. I've never seen that shirt.
No,
on
I
you
wanted
before.
to yin and yang you today because you're always in black. And I'm like, man, I got to go white.
Yeah.
Candy
so
stripe.
is this for the service tonight? Are you dressing up? Christmas?
Not really, but sometimes you just kind of get in the mood.
Mhm.
Maybe not. I
To
don't
use
know.
buttons.
To use buttons. Yeah.
Dress for
Yeah.
success.
Yeah. I don't know.
It
Just
looks
kinda woke
good.
up-
You look
It was
good.
kind of gray. It's that Advent season going on. I'm just like, I don't know. The shirt was calling.
Next
What it
week,
calls?
full
You
suit.
listen.
Looks
Full
good.
suit next week.
Looks good.
Yeah.
So Dave's in a
Full suit.
button-up Ralph Lauren shirt. If you're not watching online, I'm trying to give you a quick visual of what's happening in studio right now. Andrew's here and he's back, but for some reason does not have a hat on.
It's weird.
Yeah, wait a minute.
It's
Wait a
cold
minute.
too. I feel cold.
Welcome
I don't know.
to my
I
world.
forgot one.
Yeah. My through about the middle of November, my head is cold, but then after that, it just becomes numb,
Yeah, acclimate.
and then I don't even care.
You just don't feel
I don't
anything.
feel anything. So, and then I've got these readers on because my eyes are failing me, and so I can't see. My arm is not long enough anymore to hold my phone out.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like I'm giving in. I got to carry readers with me now. Either that or just have, some. What'd you get? You got
Gotta
some
get a
new
monocle,
glasses.
man. No, a monocle.
A monocle.
Yeah, you would look
yeah,
great
you
with a
would look great
monocle.
with them.
On the-
Squeeze
on
that
the
in.
stick.
Yeah, that would
Right.
be
Yeah.
great.
You're on stage. You're trying to see the words.
Hold on, I can't play this guitar yet because I'm holding my monocle.
We're gonna have to start printing the music
Okay.
bigger.
Yeah. Is that a D? Is that a B?
Yeah. And then we're gonna go through twice as much paper.
Yeah,
That'll be half our church budget.
Yeah. The large print.
paper
Right.
to accommodate Steve's
Right.
aging eyes. Yeah,
Sorry, everyone, we can't build a new structure because we have an uptick in paper usage.
exactly.
Anyway, Barbie Wells, you should get your eyes checked. Maybe. Yes, I know, hun. I'm calling her hun because she's my wife. I don't just call everyone hun.
Right. Hey, give a hun out to Tasha here too. You
Oh,
know?
hey, hun. Tasha. Hi, Tasha.
Well, I was gone last week, but I did take a listen, and we ended on a cliffhanger.
Okay.
You
what's the
ended.
cliffhanger?
You left the people wanting more. So, the end of last week, it was Jesus born during the summer or the winter?
Was Jesus born in the summer
You
or
got
the
a
winter?
50-50 shot on this.
I know, right? Right. Let's roll the dice here.
We just
Do you-
don't care about fall or spring. Those don't exist.
Do you want the most anticlimactic cliffhanger in all of human history?
I can guess what it's going to be.
Right. What do you think it's going to be?
We don't
Yeah.
know.
Who knows? Who knows? 1 in 365 chance, right?
Mhm.
Or maybe it's neither. Maybe it's spring or fall. I'll give you some of the speculation around it. I mean, the reason that we do celebrate Christmas on Christmas Day has nothing to do with thinking that specific day is Jesus' birthday. There's other reasons for that. But I'll give you some speculation on it, why people have said like a spring, summertime versus a winter time. There's some references that people try to draw out of the Christmas story in Matthew 1 and 2 and Luke 1 and 2 about the lambs being birthed, as the shepherds are, overlooking their flock. And what season would that typically happen in a Middle Eastern, context, in a Judean context.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's a clue that you can pick up on, but it certainly starts putting a lot of baggage into the choice of terms used and whether that is lambs being birthed or lambs themselves versus sheep in general. And it's speculative. But the other speculative run is I've actually read some of this where I'm going to read Luke 1 verse 5 to you, where it says, in the time of Herod, king of Judea, there was a priest named Zechariah who belonged to the priestly division of Abijah. And he was basically on rotation or duty in the temple. And so some have tried to reconstruct these priestly divisions and when they would serve. And of course, a lot of that is speculative and takes some reconstructive artwork, if you will, in its own right. But some have actually tried to pinpoint that to like the December-ish time. And so maybe there is more to a December birth than we typically give credit for. But I don't know. 1 in 365, man.
So when did
1
that
in
come around
365, yeah.
that we settled on the 25th?
Yeah, so how did December 25th come around? This is a little bit more in-depth. We're going to go down the history rabbit hole here.
Had to do with
Because
tax
you
season.
had to do it.
Tax.
Tax season. You got to get it done.
Gotta get
Tax
it.
season.
Gotta get in.
So in the pagan Roman Empire, there was a holiday called Sol Invictus. Sol, like solar, S-O-L. You can hear it in there. And Invictus meaning the invincible sun or the victorious sun. And it was, the way I kind of like to hear it put is the festival or feast of the unconquered sun. And it was a pagan-rooted holiday, as the Roman cult was, of celebrating, well, the sun and the divinity and God of the sun, basically. Why around this time? Why around December 25th? Well, let me throw it back at you. What is the shortest day of the year?
I don't know what the date is.
The 21st.
Typically,
21st
it's
of
considered
what?
December 21st.
I was like, I know it's coming
I
up.
didn't even know
It's
that.
the winter solstice.
Yeah.
So June 21st is the longest day of the year. December 21st is the shortest day of the year, typically speaking, right? But the problem is calendars don't quite line up with the actual solar cycle. This is why we build leap years in, and even our own leap year doesn't get it quite exactly and quite right, and there's some corrections that have to happen. Well, is the tradition of this developed and they would track the days, it kind of got off what we anchored to December 21st today and started hovering around December 25th just because of calendar anomalies. And this became the festival day or feast day around the time that the shift happened. Jump now to the 4th century AD, and we're going to come up against the Roman Emperor Constantine, who was the first Roman emperor to be a Christian, and he actually converted to Christianity. And there's a really cool story about him that's worth your time reading. Just Google it or something like that. But what happened in the Christian church around this time is that they took a lot of these Roman practices and Roman holidays and Roman things like this, and the term I like to use is they baptized them. They reappropriated them under Christian ideas and imagery. So you would celebrate on the shortest day of the year that light or the sun would not fundamentally be overthrown, because after that day, I mean, if the sun's going to be defeated any day, it's going to be December 21st, right? But he's fighting back, getting longer and longer from that day. Well, let's talk about now a greater light, a more truly divine light, who also has come into the world. And you're basically taking one holiday and appropriating it to Christ, and it became therefore the celebration of Christmas, or Christ's Mass is what that means, or as we often talk about, Christ's Day. So that's how December 25th came about. Roman holiday, reappropriated into Christian thinking.
I'm okay with that.
You can roll with that?
Yeah, it
All
makes
right.
sense to me.
All right. Steve, can you roll with that?
Well, I suppose I'm going to have to, because I'm not going to. Well,
You're
I
not going
don't.
to fight the power on this
No.
and do Christmas in
I don't
May?
even want to buy
Like Cinco de
presents.
Mayo Christmas, May 5th is going to be the new Christmas celebration.
That would be good, because my birthday's 3 days later.
I know. And
When's your birthday? It's May,
May.
isn't it? May what?
Yeah, 11.
11.
I mean, look at this. It's
I knew.
But I think we would just put Jesus' birth right in the middle.
Right in the middle.
Yeah.
You know what? I wouldn't recommend it, though. I always feel bad for kids who have like that December 22nd birthday or 27th. It's like, I kind of feel like you're getting ripped off a little bit. Like me, text in, if you were born between like December 12th and the new year.
How do you like it?
How do you like it?
Yeah.
Would you get double the presents, or would you just kind of get shafted on this?
I think you get shafted.
Yeah.
I would think so, but I've heard a couple say otherwise that,
But then it's
They
like
kinda get
all
a
at
lion's
once,
share.
and then what do you have for the rest of the year?
yeah.
You know? When's your
Three of my
birthday?
nieces and
Feb 1.
nephews.
And
Feb
see,
1,
I
that's
always
right,
like
you're up.
that because whatever you didn't get for Christmas, you had just enough time to kind of like ask for again.
And
You know,
still
Wow,
get
there
it
you go.
cheaply because it's like the after deals.
Yeah, maybe.
Your
Yeah,
parents
right,
are planning ahead. Yeah.
Is that why I got so much Christmas deco over the years?
yeah.
Here's wrapping paper.
Knickknacks. Boy, mom and dad really think I love knickknacks.
Right.
Okay.
The Christmas shaving set.
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
Do I need this?
Yeah.
I don't know.
How many nativity scenes do I need? You have one for each room, right?
One for each room, two for each room. Actually, they compete. Head to head.
I just got my first
Son of a-
one.
Did you really?
Yeah, my parents were like, "Here's a nativity set." I was
All
like,
right.
Great.
All right.
So now it's official. It's
Welcome to
officially
Homeroom.
Christmas in
It
my
is.
house.
Yes.
Was
right.
it a
Because no
living
tree,
one?
right?
No, it is
Yeah.
not. It is not a living.
It's a living
nativity.
one.
That would not last long.
He's got some mice in a container.
See, I thought it was people just hanging out in your place for the next
They're
30
taxidermied
days.
mice. In
Yeah.
my...
You come home, there's some dude dressed like Joseph, and some guy in angel wings, just kind of
That might be getting set up in my spare bedroom. I don't go in there ever, so I'm gonna open the door.
squatting in there.
Joseph, quit eating my stinking pizza.
What happened to all my leftovers?
It was Jesus.
And now I'm gonna be scared when I go home tonight. I'm gonna just peek
I
in
know,
there.
peeking in the door.
Like, what, was
Yeah.
that a cow in the
Yeah,
background?
maybe you should give your address online if anyone gets some ideas.
Yeah, please. We'll publish that. We'll
Right.
publish that. So if you haven't been able to tell, this show is all about Christmas.
So yeah, we got a lot of Christmas questions here.
Exactly.
Today, huh?
But if you have some that you don't hear and you're curious about, text them in to 815-314-0363, and we'll get to them in the next couple weeks here. Let's do this one. Who were the three kings in the song?
Oh, who were the three kings in the song? If you're unfamiliar with the song, "We Three Kings of Orient are, bearing gifts we traveled so far."
Leftward leading, still
Proceed. I think you're like conflating verses.
Yeah, I have no
I think
idea.
we're actually singing it tonight too.
No, we're not.
All right. So that song has often been called the Song of Three Airs, because it says there's three of them. It says they're kings, and it says they're from the Orient. And of course, it depends how you unpack that. In Matthew chapter 2, it's the only place in the Bible that you get the record of these people who are traditionally called kings. But the word it gives there is, if I was to transliterate the Greek, it would be Magi, which is where we get the term Magi. And it's probably what you've heard historically. So it never says that they were kings. So let's talk about who were the Magi that appear in this story. Well, if you're in etymology and things like this, you can hear the word magician. It is an extrapolation. And so in essence, they were magicians. But to be more pointed on it, what they were astrologers, and probably Chaldean or Babylonian, but certainly from the East, because the biblical narrative, it says they came out of the East. And of course, the Babylonian and Assyrian, or what we think of as the Persian culture today, has a deep history of what we would think of as astrology and maybe even the magic arts and things like that. I'm not talking about people pulling rabbits out of hats here, but they would serve as advisors to royalty, to leaders, to administrators, to kings, because these were people who were known for their astuteness, their knowledge, their insights, and ability to peer beyond the veil of reality into the ways and mechanisms and workings not only of the universe and the stars and how that dictates life, but also the gods themselves who communicate through these ways. And so if you're an ancient leader or an ancient king, well, you want people like this on your staff, because they're the ones that are in tune with the divine orchestrations and the orchestrations of the universe. So think about them as cabinet members today. These are the advisors, if you will, but advisors steeped in, of course, the occult or magic arts.
Kind of like Andrew and I are to you.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Magi.
Yeah. I mean,
Magi Andrew.
I so appreciate the way that you read the bones
Yes,
every week,
yes,
and
right.
the tea leaves and things like that. And
Well, I want to make sure you're okay.
There's next week's introduction.
There you go.
Yeah.
Tea leaf reader, Steve Wells.
So if I'm getting this
Yeah.
straight,
but it never says that there's three of them, actually. All it says is it's plural. So there was at least two, but probably was a caravan of people coming. Because just like when an advisor, a head of state, shows up today, they're probably not coming solo. They're coming with their entourage, if you will, their security, if you will, and
SUVs.
others. You got it.
Yeah.
This is probably what is more likely that happened when they came into Jesus' infancy. It also doesn't say that they came at the very moment of his birth. Some speculate that they came when he was a year or maybe even up to 2 years old. And the 2-year-old idea has a lot of credence to it, because in the biblical narrative, they come to see King Herod first to find out where this one who's king of the Jews is born. And of course, Herod freaks because he's the king or puppet king, if you will, and he doesn't want any threat to the throne. So Herod looks to his own advisors, not astrologers, but the Jewish prophets, if you will, and priests, to figure out from the scriptures where it's to be born, and that's how he gives them the Bethlehem thing. And he tells these Magi, let me know when you find him so I too can go and worship him. Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
And the Magi are actually warned in a dream not to return to Herod. They escape by another route. Herod is so infuriated that he commands the death or the execution of all children or babies 2 years and under. Well, why 2 years and under? Is he just being extra safe? Or was Jesus maybe about that age from the time that the star was first seen? And that's where it gets a little bit speculative, but certainly under the age of 2. Multiples, Magi who came. And the reason that 3 becomes so entrenched in the tradition is because it talks about gifts of gold, of incense or frankincense historically, and myrrh that were being brought. So they go, okay, 3 different kinds of gifts. Well, it just kind of works well if one each is bringing one, and that's kind of where the tradition of 3 finds its birth. But there's all kind of lore written about these guys, and it's fun. They actually have historic names. Balthazar, Melchior, and Caspar are the traditional names given to them, and not the friendly ghost. And they're shown as being of different ethnic origins. One of like a deep, like almost Ethiopian, African kind of origin. One of a very kind of Turkish or Syrian kind of origin. One often more like an Indian, like an Indian. I mean by that kind of origin. I mean, who knows on that kind of stuff. But what's cool about the story is how they, through their occultic arts, perceive a star, and whether that's actually some supernatural thing blazing in the sky, or a comet, or just reading the zodiacal signs, if you will. And there's a lot of cool speculation on all of these that have credence. By their pagan arts, they come to realize that something special has happened, and a king is being born in Judea, and they come to literally worship him. They see divinity in this. And it's a fascinating story to me about how God meets people in their own place. And even through things that the Old Testament scriptures might forbid, a pagan people, if you will, who don't know God, come to see God more clearly in the story than the very people who are entrusted with the tradition, the priests, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and of course Herod as well. So There you go.
So I think this follows up on it well. Is the modern nativity scene accurate? As far as, I mean, we talked about the number of, magi or kings, we don't really know. But as far as like the stable and all the animals gathered around and, 1, 2, 3 shepherds, that type of stuff.
No, it's not, but that's okay because it's really cool and it's what it's meant to portray symbolically rather than, shall I say, literally. Because the shepherds and the magi probably were not there at the same time. It doesn't say that the angels came to the stable while the shepherds came to see it. In fact, it says they went back into heaven.
Yeah.
And things like that. To the very number of who was there, that's up and speculative. And honestly, more people think that Jesus was born in a cave than he was in our traditional kind of stable. Because in the Middle East, where you would keep your animals, I mean, yes, they could fence in things and have enclosures, but oftentimes as part of the housing complexes that archaeologists will kind of unearth and study and look at, they would have within this almost enclave, if you will, of homes gathered together in a protective fashion in a circle. The animals in the barn would be, well, can we build it into like a stone adobe kind of thing? And if there's a cave there, even better. So again, some of it is a who knows, but we shouldn't think that the modern nativity scene is in any way trying to be an accurate reflection of some kind of biblical narrative or, whatnot.
Cool. Well, mine only has Mary and Joseph and Jesus. So
okay, so like every year,
cast out everyone
you know
else.
what you're getting for Christmas gifts for the next year from your mom and dad, right?
Yes.
You're gonna get an angel one year. You're gonna get a camel
all
one
the
year.
rest of the pieces. My niece is obsessed with baby Jesus, but she likes to play hide and go seek with baby Jesus, but doesn't always remember where she hides him. So my sister is constantly on a hunt for their baby Jesus out
That's
of their
fantastic.
nativity set. She's just, he was in the trash can today. He was in the cabinet today. Like,
And is it like a 2-foot baby Jesus, or is it like
no? It's very,
little.
very
It's
small.
size of like a peanut or something.
Well,
like
and
that.
all she has to do to not get in trouble is say, well, he must have ascended. I mean,
we jumped.
He did it once, he can do it again.
Transfiguration and
Skip the
ascension.
crucifixion, skip the resurrection.
we don't need to go there.
I like this one here, talking about Christmas trees. My friend told me that after reading Jeremiah 10, they no longer do Christmas trees. Jeremiah 10 seems to talk about Christmas trees to a T. I really like having one, but is it idolatrous? And this was a chapter that I was not familiar with. So
this is a great question. Thank you so much for asking, and I actually appreciate the sincerity and devotion of who's ever asking about really wanting to honor God and not fall into false practice or idolatrous practice. Some people, when they find out about the December 25th idea as well, will have a similar kind of thing. I think it would be helpful if I read the pertinent part of Jeremiah 10 and then we'll comment on it. It says this. Here it is. Right at the beginning. Do not learn the ways of the nations or be terrified by signs in the heavens, though the nations are terrified by them. So it's a typical prophetic call of don't get afraid of the same stuff that others get afraid of. And likewise, don't get wrapped up into the same practices of all of these pagan nations, because this is Jeremiah speaking to the people of Israel, Judah more specifically, and they're called to be different, holy, set apart, with a monogamous relationship with God, if you will, or an exclusive relationship, rather than the pagan expression of all kinds of practices being kind of brought together, right? And it goes on and says this, for the practices of the peoples are worthless. Here it is. They cut a tree out of the forest, and a craftsman shapes it with his chisel. They adorn it with silver and gold. They fasten it with hammer and nails, so it will not totter. Like a scarecrow in a cucumber field, their idols cannot speak. They must be carried because they cannot walk. Do not fear them. They can do no harm, nor can they do any good. And it goes on to talk about other ideas of idolatry. I think what the reader is picking up on, though, is, we go out and you go to cut your own Christmas tree farm, or you have Home Depot do it for you, right? A tree cut in a field, and then we adorn it, maybe not with actual silver and gold, but certainly with gold tinsel and silver ornaments, or pick your color. We could see some of the correlations here. Mm-hmm. Well, a couple comments about it. One, I think if you're doing a close reading of the text and it talks about the craftsman shaping it with his chisel, what we're getting the idea here more is of an idol being crafted out of the wood or the log that's cut down and then adorned. Otherwise, you don't have a craftsman come in your house and shape your Christmas tree with a chisel. But again, I'm being a little overly literalistic here. Nonetheless, it is kind of really talking about fashioning idols out of natural objects, in this case, wood or a tree. But you'll see Isaiah make the same kind of comments on fashioning out of stone or whatever it might be. And the ridiculousness of cutting down a tree, this is Isaiah, saving half of it for firewood to cook your food over, and then using the other half to bow down and worship to, going, it's a tree, right? But nonetheless, you see the idea of adorning it and decorating it, and the tradition of the Christmas tree does likewise also have pagan roots. Not from Jeremiah 10 specifically, but now more from the Germanic cultures, right? That existed more in the AD sphere, where you could read about Yule logs and the adornment of trees and things like this that coincided with the pagan festivals of the unconquered sun, not just Rome, and it's pretty across the board. And some Christians have really struggled with that over the centuries. And it really comes down to how is a Christian called to interact with culture. And there's been three basic approaches, and I'll give the two minority approaches first, and then I'll give what has typically been considered the orthodox approach, if I can use it that way, that's been practiced by most Christians throughout human history. And let's go to the two minority positions first. The minority positions are this: just embrace culture whole hog. Whatever the culture says is true, is good. Let's just do it. It doesn't matter. Whatever we believe in our heart, it doesn't matter what we practice. And from the beginning, that's been fairly rejected. Fairly. It's been widespread rejected from the time of the apostles themselves through Christian history. Now, it always exists in every generation of the church, where you will see Christians bowing to culture first as what shapes our norms and our mores and our customs and our practices, and also our idea of right and wrong, and subserviating the biblical and Christian witness to it. I don't think I need to get into that too much, but this is a stream that exists in Christianity and churches today. The equal and opposite reaction to this is to avoid culture at all costs. It's almost to be counterculture for the sake of being countercultural. So if the culture does it, it must be bad, and therefore we will do the opposite. Maybe the best expression of this today would be among the Amish communities or even Mennonites, where there's very much a separation from the world. My wife, for example, grew up in a Mennonite tradition, And I remember some of the devotional encouragements that they would give in their literature that they would hand out, and just the context of the way that the church did life together, and the cultural norm that was placed on its members. And I remember reading this one article was, I think it was titled, "Is It Too Much to Ask?" And then it just started listing things. Is it too much to ask that you don't go to the school dance? Is it too much to ask that you don't participate in sports? Is it too much to ask that you don't have a TV? Is it too much to ask that we don't dress in white or use jewelry or other worldly kinds of things? Is it too much to ask? And it would just kind of went on and on to basically any kind of cultural practice that people would find themselves engaged in, from, joining a sports team or a club at school, to participating in some kind of civic activity, to having entertainment from the world as part of your life and home, to dressing the way the world does and things like that. And it can be well motivated, because it's often brought out of a context of people truly wanting to be separate unto God and not tainted by the things of this world. But often what it debases into is equating anything of the culture as just being evil in its own right, which I think is anti-biblical, because culture is culture, and it could be good, bad, or indifferent. But by being cultural doesn't automatically make it wrong. The more prevailing position, and why most churches will set up Christmas trees, including our own, this type of year, and most Christians will find themselves in a spiritual climate where their spiritual leaders won't forbid that kind of practice, is the idea of baptizing culture. And that goes back to what I was mentioning with December 25th earlier, that we all live in culture, and culture fundamentally is a gift of God. And the things that we bring about from language to holidays to dress to food to traditions, to you name it, don't necessarily need to be good or bad in their own right. So that there is nothing fundamentally wrong with decorating a tree. If your culture likes to decorate a tree, well, how cool is that? Just like if your culture likes to bring plants in the house and grow them, or, any other number of things. What's wrong is to decorate a tree, to worship it, and claim that it has some kind of power in your life and you need to bring sacrifice to it or to what it represents in order to get on well in this world. That would be idolatry. But you can separate the idolatrous aspect of something from what it is in its own right. There's nothing fundamentally idolatrous about an adorned tree. There is something idolatrous about claiming that this tree represents some God who isn't Yahweh and giving obeisance to it. And so just like December 25th, what the Christian community has long since done with trees and Yule logs and things of that nature, is baptized it, saying we are going to take something that may have become corrupt in idea and practice, but baptize it or immerse it into Christ and redefine it into Christ, who should be the true source of what is good and right in our cultural practice in this world, and see it through those eyes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So my encouragement to anyone is, look, if decorating a tree is tempting you to idolatry, or tempting you to some kind of what I would call cultural compromise, well, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't risk your loyalty to Christ because everyone around you is doing it. But if you can set up a tree in your house and deck it out with 3,000 lights and put ornaments on it and tinsel on it because it's pretty and you like it and it's something fun in its own right and doesn't have any of that other baggage for you, well, then celebrate it to the degree that you want. Certainly don't have to, but go for it. So I would say don't judge your friend in wherever they're at, because you don't know what their internal spiritual wrestle might be. But also don't think that just because this is what your friend is doing, that therefore has to be mandated on you. I think Romans 14 might be a great chapter for you to read in context of this.
Kent, you want to give us we're halfway through right now. You want to give us the
Sure.
shout out?
Thanks for tuning in. This is 216 The Net. Thanks for getting caught in the net. This is questions you never thought you could ask in church. And of course, you don't have to be in church to never ask these questions. If you're riding in your car, it's the middle of the night, whatever, pull over and then text them into 815-314-0363. Or if you are jumping out of the shower or in the shower as we started this whole thing, write it on the wall. Get out and then text that question in. Keep the phones out of the shower as well, right? And we're here every Wednesday, 12:30 Central, and then you can also catch us on Sunday mornings, right? Fellowship of Faith Worship Hour at 10 a.m. Central. So,
10 a.m.
Yeah.
You know, this whole time when you were, expounding upon idolatry, and then, someone could actually rebrand it so that it's Idola and then the tree so that they could sell them as idolatries.
Like Idala signs.
Yes. See, that would be good. But I had this whole vision of you in pursuit of a wife, meaning you get dressed up, you're in Amish attire, you go out to the nearest Amish or Mennonite community, and you're like, it's time for me to get a wife.
Because that's how it went down.
Yes. And so then
Yeah.
you go there and you seek, oh, there's a special one. And then you maybe dance. Do they dance?
No,
They don't dance.
No.
What else? What do they do for fun? Horseshoes?
No, but we, my wife and I, we got smoked by an Amish volleyball team.
Oh.
It absolutely crushed. We were over at the state park, out where she lives, visiting family back home. And, we pull in and you got the horse and buggies there next to the cars parked, and they were all playing volleyball. And and when I say they're playing volleyball, I mean, full garb, like, the big wide brim black hat, the big beards, the black thing. They were wearing black Nikes.
Okay.
Which is good to see. So, I mean, they had
Sponsored
the right footwear
by.
on. But yeah, it was multi-generational. There were some kids playing. There was like grandpa age guy playing, and they asked if we wanted to play. And it's like, and when you have these moments in life, when you just know you're never going to get to experience this again. It's like if an Amish volleyball team challenges you to a match, you always say yes.
Always say yes.
And so absolutely greatest group of people you'd ever meet. I mean, we had so much fun playing with them, but they destroyed us. I mean, not only competitive, but competitive, like behind humility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like they were just good, and they knew it.
They knew it.
But they didn't rub your face in it.
Yeah.
That's okay. You'll get the next one.
They did after you left.
Absolutely supportive,
But
But totally.
It was
They're
just
still laughing about
mocking,
us.
Yeah.
He's a donkey.
So they play volleyball.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So we've got Kiza Andrew, good friend of ours that lives in Uganda.
Yeah.
He's chiming in
All
right
right.
now.
All right.
He
Well,
does a
you
lot
got
of
it.
street preaching,
Yeah.
and he's
fantastic.
going to school right now to be a pastor.
Hey, that's cool.
So,
all right.
There he is. Hello, Kiza. Praise the Lord. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for what you're doing, brother. Thanks for tuning in.
Yep. Good guy. You'll get to meet him someday.
All right. Looking forward to it.
So we got another Advent question here. My mom always had an Advent wreath.
Hmm.
I've heard many different explanations for why one of the candles is a different color. What's this all about?
Yeah, so an Advent wreath is a wreath that you put in your home or your church, and it historically has 4 candles around the perimeter of the wreath. 3 of one color, 1 of an alternate color. And the colors have changed. You'll see a lot of times 3 that are purple, 1 that's pink. Sometimes you'll see blue used instead. We don't need to get into all that. And then on Christmas Day, there'll be a big white one that you put in the middle, which is to symbolize the birth of Christ. Fundamentally, what these Advent wreaths are all about is it's just a church tradition, and it's basically a countdown. And probably, I don't know how long back they go, but probably before people had clocks in their house, it was just a way to kind of count down to Christmas. There's 4 weeks of Advent, right? Advent is a season in the church year that precedes Christmas. The whole season is a countdown to Christmas. And you would light 1 candle each week or each Sunday at the start of that new week as kind of that lead up. So it's getting brighter, closer. Kind of fun, kind of cool. And if you have kids at home, I really encourage the tradition. They kind of, I don't know, I've never met a kid that doesn't get into fire. So I always loved them. But why the different colors? You can look into it. I cannot find, to save my life, any kind of solid historic tradition that roots it. If you look into it, I know someone's going to text in and go, it's about this. It's about peace, love, joy, and hope. Or someone else is going to text in and go, well, the pink one's the 3rd week and it's the John the Baptist candle. I know we're going to get people that are so just rooted in their tradition because that's what their pastor told them, or that's what we do in our church. But I tell you, look into it, and you will find about 18 explanations. And I just encourage you, find one that's the mother of them all. And it just doesn't seem to be there. It just seems like different communities, develop their own tradition around it, and over the years and generations in different ways. So maybe there's a better historian out there than I am that can get to the root of it all, and please text it in because we'd love to know, but source where you're getting it from, because that's where it gets significant.
Or send in your favorite Christmas hymn or carol. Like I would love to know, like, what is everybody's favorite? Is there overwhelming, like Silent Night? What's your favorite?
I don't know if I have one. It's there's a top tier, and it depends on mood. What Child Is This is really high for me. Hark the Herald Angels Sing, both in its original version and its today's version, is high for me. God Rest You Merry Gentlemen is actually way up there for me.
I can see that.
I think that's my top three.
Especially that one, like when you're dressed in your medieval knights costumes and stuff.
But see, it can't be like the bubbly version. I like the haunted version of it, the minor key version, or I like the Trans-Siberian version of it too.
Yeah.
So
you guys both like them, don't you? What is it? TSO for short?
TSO.
So what you call them, Steve? Do you roll with TSO?
I don't.
Cool people
I don't like
call
it.
Yeah. How do you think?
I think it's overdone, overproduced.
All right.
Well, it's also been the same thing for the last 20 years.
So it's like hasn't been really anything new.
Yeah.
They did something
Steve's
new at the
favorite
beginning.
is anything with Mariah Carey. Right?
I love Mariah Carey.
Mariah Carey. And Mary, did you know?
If I could carry Mariah Carey
Mary,
in a
did you
little
know?
box,
He sings Mary, Did You Know in the shower.
I do.
Big, with vibrato.
Boys
Yes.
to Men. Married to
Mary, did you know? My baby.
We're doing Mary this Sunday at FOF. We need a special solo.
If we ever do that, I'm
get
leaving.
off your Jeep run. Get off your Jeep run. And come.
I'm leaving. Kiza, make room for me. I'm moving to Uganda.
We'll have to see if we can get a blues version of
Scott says Little Drummer Boy.
Mary,
Which
Did You
version?
Know?
Which version, Scott? Little Drummer Boy. Check out Audio Adrenaline's. Andrew loves Audio Adrenaline's Little Drummer Boy. I actually do.
one of my favorites.
I like it.
I know you. Yeah, you've actually
We've done it.
you've arranged it. Yeah.
Oh, we have some special guests.
So I like this one. I'm a Christian, but my husband is Jewish. We want our kids to celebrate Christmas and Hanukkah.
Oh,
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's totally okay. But like a lot of things like the Christmas tree and everything else that we talked about, it's the reasons behind it that are most significant and important. Thank you for asking this today. Sometimes I think we mistakenly pit Christianity against Judaism in all its forms and forget that Christianity views itself as a Judaic religion. Certainly historically, that it always saw itself as the fulfillment of Judaism, and that Jesus himself, more likely than not, celebrated Hanukkah, along with many of these other Jewish feasts. And in fact, you can find some references in like John 7, I believe, for example, where Jesus seems to be in Jerusalem at the Feast of Lights. Hanukkah is celebrated. I can describe Hanukkah momentarily if you want, where Jesus stands up in the middle of it and goes, I am the light of the world. Particularly in the context of the menorah, if you will, being lit for the feast or festival of lights, which is what Hanukkah means and is. So, yeah, you're a Christian, your husband is Jewish, and you want to celebrate both traditions. I personally don't see anything wrong with that. But here's the fly in the ointment for you in something that you do have to navigate, in something that I would encourage you to wrestle with. If you are in a mixed faith family, particularly Jewish and Christian, there's more fundamental, deeper questions that you need to ask about what are we going to teach our child about reality and who Jesus is. I am sure you found many points of commonality from ethics to morals to right and wrong to the view of one God who rules this universe that we seek. I mean, all of this is stuff that Christianity espouses. But at some level, you're going to have the question about who is Jesus? And if you believe that Jesus is Yahweh, if you believe that Jesus is Savior and Lord, and that our fundamental call in life is to have loyalty to Jesus on the basis of who he says he is, it means at some level that not only all loyalty, but all things need to be interpreted through him. And that would include Hanukkah as well. So to celebrate Hanukkah is great. But if it's being done in such a way to say, well, we're just going to let you decide, or we're not going to get into questions of who Jesus really is. We're just going to kind of keep some surface level traditions alive and get double the gifts and spin some dreidels and light some candles and then do a Christmas tree as well. That's kind of shallow. And I would actually say it's even insulting to both faith traditions. At some level, I think you and your husband need to have the deeper conversation about how you're going to raise your children. And I hope as a Christian that your loyalty to Christ will come out in that conversation, and that you'll be a witness both to your husband and to your child within that. So some deeper things to wrestle with there in the context of it all. But let's just kind of assume that is going on and that your husband is supportive. Then no, certainly enjoy the traditions around both, but go deeper into what the meanings of these traditions happen to be, and certainly how Hanukkah found fulfillment ultimately in Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah, great question.
Jesus,
great question.
So Jesus celebrated Hanukkah. Most likely, he obviously did not celebrate Christmas.
Yeah,
That would be a little weird.
yeah, and unless
He
Mary,
celebrated his birthday.
unless
I guess.
Mary was lighting the candles on a cake every year, which I highly doubt. But
Birthday parties.
yeah,
Yeah.
but he was doing it in the summer, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the fall.
The fall,
Just the nice
yeah.
autumn leaves.
Nice autumn leaves in the Middle East. Yeah, they're beautiful. Around October.
Do palm trees change color? I don't know.
People drive out from the city, to go upstate and see.
Do you
the,
think they
the fall
built
foliage?
built snowmen back then?
Oh yeah, up on Mount Herman and stuff like that. How could they not?
Just huge ones.
Just huge snowmen. Yeah,
Made out of boulders.
right.
At the top of a pyramid.
Yeah.
There is a snowman.
Scott says, "We the Kingdom." Yep, for Little Drummer Boy, and absolutely the Audio Adrenaline. Yeah, I agree. They're both good, different in their own ways. And then we have Nasir chiming in. He says, "Hello." So
Hello.
hello,
All right.
Nasir.
Hello.
All right, Nasir, share with us where you're from. All right, we'd love to know where home is for you.
So a friend told me that the virgin birth is something the church made up, and that the Bible passage it's based on doesn't even talk about virgins. What do Christians teach about this?
No, that's not true. No, it's not something the church made up. It's absolutely biblical, but I will unpack maybe where some of that myth comes from. You can read about this in both Luke and in Matthew. But Matthew chapter 1 specifically quotes a bit of Isaianic or Isaiah prophecy, Isaiah chapter 7. And the specific passage that it quotes is Isaiah 7:14, which says, the virgin will be with child and will bear a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. Matthew takes this verse from Isaiah and applies it to the message that the angel gives to Mary about how, being a true virgin, she will be overshadowed by the Holy Spirit and conceive in her virginity and give birth miraculously to a child, not through typical sexual union, right? The word that it uses in Greek is parthenos, and parthenos means virgin. But the underlying passage from Isaiah, which is written in Hebrew, uses the term alma. And alma can refer to any kind of young unmarried woman, whether technically a virgin or not. Like today, there's a lot of young unmarried women who have nonetheless had sex and aren't virgins, right? Culturally, it would more likely than not be someone who is an actual virgin, but it doesn't have to be read specifically in Isaiah in that context. And I would even go further to say, I don't think that's the context Isaiah meant it in. I think when Isaiah gave the prophecy, what he meant is that this young woman over here who is unmarried is going to give birth to a son, but through the normal process of getting married and then having a child through normal sexual union, and then the child that Alma or woman was going to bear would be the sign that God was with the people of Judea, or Judah, I should say, during the threat of the Assyrian Empire. And I think the entire Isaiah chapter 7 through 11 context supports that reading most naturally. But what the New Testament does is it reinterprets Old Testament passages in light of something new or surprising that God is doing through Christ. Something that you couldn't even see or suspect. And what the New Testament often does is hyper-literalizes Old Testament passages. And it shows how God is working and hinting through something that had fulfillment in Isaiah's day, but now he's giving a hyper literal aspect to it where, back then, this virgin was going to get married and have a son, and it was going to be a sign that God's with us. But now God is coming on an actual virgin. He's actually going to be my son, God is saying. And this is the even greater sign that God is with us. So no, it's nothing that the church invented. It's coming right out of the apostolic witness itself.
Be interesting to know where they're at within what their belief system is within Christianity or the Bible anyway. Like, because in my mind, there's so many other things to question besides that are probably even mind-blowing in it within how my mind works.
It is, but this has often been one of the major hangups for people, because obviously a literal virgin having a child,
right,
which is what the Bible and Christianity has always given witness to, even as a prime point. I mean, it gets encapsulated in those basic fundamental creeds. And I believe in Jesus Christ, the only begotten Son of God, or let me go the Apostles' Creed version because it's shorter. Where it's, I believe in God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, his only Son, who was conceived by the Holy Spirit, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate. I mean, it gives like 7 points of fact, and that's one of them. But because, let's face it, it's miraculous. And if you have an underlying problem with the miraculous or the supernatural or the ability of, in this world, God to intervene because you insist that it's a closed materialistic universe, well, it's just one miracle among many that's going to philosophically and fundamentally trip you up. Mm-hmm. But the message of the Bible is God intervenes in human history and does things out of the norm that are miraculous or against the laws of nature or science, as we would typically characterize them.
Yeah. Kiza says, I love the Greek and the Hebrew interpretation because they always bring out a more clear interpretation. So what are your thoughts on that? Greek and Hebrew.
Yeah. And yeah, thank you. And I would agree. And this is why I think it's important for church leaders to know and study and read in the original languages, because while translations are fantastic, wrong conclusions can sometimes be drawn from translation that were never intended by the translator. And sometimes it brings things into like sharper depth. It's interesting. It's not like you need to know Greek and Hebrew to like discover some like lost truth or hidden meaning or secret doctrine of who Christ is. You can get everything in translation, but it keeps you from certain pitfalls and brings other things into greater clarity that you might otherwise miss. It's the difference I've often heard between watching TV in black and white versus 4K, or watching the football game on TV versus being there in person to get a wider field of vision than just what the camera is focusing on. All these analogies are half-baked at best, but
sure,
it gives us something to kind of put our feet on. Yeah, great question.
This one's nice. Sometimes I feel like people treat God like Santa Claus, like some jolly guy you never see who brings presents to good people, but not to bad. Is this what Christians believe?
Well, whether some Christians believe that or not, I'm not really going to say, because I'm sure some Christians do believe that, but that is not Christianity's portrayal of God. But there are points of similarity. Time allowing, and if it's interesting, we can get into a whole thing on Santa Claus.
Well, there's a bunch of other questions about that, so maybe we'll dive into that next week.
Okay, if you want, but I will just give a cliffhanger this week to maybe the Santa Claus question of next week, of going Santa Claus, which is a Dutch derivative of Saint Nicholas. Saint Nicholas was a Christian bishop. And so Saint Nicholas was a Christian and one who sought to emulate his life on the way of Christ. And the way of Christ, and of course the way of God, is one of extreme generosity. It's one that blesses. It's one that's rooted in grace. So there is an aspect of truth that God is a God who gives good gifts. God is a God who delights in being generous. God is a God who gives us things, unlike Santa Claus, what we don't deserve. Because while there might be a naughty and nice list, or a righteous and wicked, God is one who delights in blessing the wicked. God is one who delights in giving the naughty things that they don't deserve, if I can put it that way. But now we're getting kind of off the rails there. But no, to treat God as nothing more than one that we go to ask things for, please, please, please give this to me, and our prayer life debases to just a list of things that we want, well, I think is insulting to God, because it's treating him like a vending machine as opposed to one that, as opposed to a person who wants to have a relationship with us. Just like if the only nature of a relationship you have with your mother or your father or a friend is always just to ask for things. I mean, maybe they delight in giving you those things, but isn't that kind of shallow? And isn't that kind of using them? And can't it be something so much more? And I do agree that I think there's a tendency of many Christians to fall into the trap of just running to God when they need something, and treating God as nothing more than someone that they can get something from in a time of need or even just out of desire. And certainly go to God with your needs and desires, but go to him with so much more and for so much more as well. Yeah. Great question.
So we have just a couple minutes left. I would
Yeah,
say
we're coming there, huh?
I liked. I don't know. I've heard that described as like vending machine Jesus.
Yeah.
Like you go there and you're like, well, I want a little bit of this, and I need a little bit of this.
I'd like G3. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
But it's only when you need something that you're going and seeking it out. Not. I mean, you're never going to a vending machine with your thankfulness or
yeah,
those
right.
other types of things.
Or even worse, if you go to God thinking that you have to give something.
Yeah.
You know, here's my $1, but if I want this, I need to give $2, right? And shoot, I don't have exact change, so what do I do about that? I mean, you could keep pushing this analogy.
Never heard of the
But-
analogy before until today.
No, really? All right.
Now you know.
And
Now you
you know,
know.
usually I go to a
Vending
vending
machine
machine, I'm almost always disappointed because anything that I want is gone, and then there's usually like some crappy pizza combos that are there that have been there for
like
8
1982.
months.
Yeah, right.
That are
yeah.
so stale on the outside and absolutely like cement on the inside.
Yeah, it's
That
almost become like
cheese.
an alternate energy
Horrible.
source. It's like the half-life in this kind of, it's glowing.
The problems in my life. So
That's the
difficult.
worst. Yeah. I'm feeling like there's a good sermon series in here.
Vending
Vending
machine.
machine Jesus.
Vending machine Jesus.
Yeah.
All right.
Maybe we should have one of those
At church.
at church.
We could Jeremiah 10 it. We could bring it out of a place. We could get someone to fashion it, like put like legs and hands and
Yeah.
a head on it. We can adorn it in silver and gold, and we can, I mean, I think there's we can push this.
Here's a question to finish up. We got about 3 minutes, but I'm just curious. Why, still staying with the Christmas theme, why was Jesus, born in the Middle East? Why couldn't it have been, like Miami? Or,
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So our whole religion comes from a war-torn area that is kind of yuck. Right.
Which
now,
I
right?
think has amazing implications on
Yeah.
its own right of what God comes down into. But the fundamental answer is he could have been born anywhere. But the reality of how God chose to work in this world is he chose one people group among all others to be his chosen people group. And that's Israel, or what later came to be known as the Jews. And it's not that God loves them more, but it's that that's who God has chosen to do his work through. And so they're the ones that God entrusted his promises to, his revelation to, his covenants to, who he set apart to be the light to the world, who he set apart to be the ones to bring clarity of who the true God of this universe is to the pagan nations all around, who are groping in the dark, trying to figure out what more is out there and who God is. And so through that people who happened to live in the Middle East, God brought forth his son. That was, the way he chose to do it.
It's good.
Would you have preferred Miami?
No, I don't. Not necessarily Miami, but
Do the palm tree thing instead of the
something. You'd think this is the right, and
so that's how you think of Miami
Or-
as
well,
What about the North Pole?
yeah,
There's a lot of
North
lights
Pole,
there, some
something, right?
singing.
Why is
floating on an iceberg.
Yeah.
Would have been one. Would have done wonders for tourism.
Yeah.
I mean, who goes to the North
Antarctica,
Pole?
Something, right?
No one.
Yeah.
Polar bears. People are crazy.
But I've always, I've
Polar
always
bears
wondered.
and people who are crazy. There's two.
They're up there
groups.
battling.
Penguins. Penguins are there. Some
No,
seals.
man, that's South Pole.
That's South
That's
Pole.
South
Yeah.
I think
You're
there's
crossing your
there's
worlds,
some
man.
North Pole penguins.
There's some penguins who have immigrated
The
up
north
to
side.
Yeah.
the other
Yeah.
side. Of
They
the-
wear blue.
Yeah. They're kind of a gang. They're rival
Yeah.
gangs. They fight it out
Yeah.
for their territory.
Just don't go along the equator where they like to cross paths.
It's demilitarized zone.
Yeah.
All right,
So this is divulged a little bit.
we've got church service tonight. Will not be airing on 21.6 the net, but out at fellowshipoffaith.org. We can get that at what time?
Yeah,
6
6 o'clock tonight. And,
Yep.
and if you are listening
6
to our
p.m.
show... Central, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't have a church home and you want help looking for one, we'd encourage you to check out Fellowship of Faith again.
Yep.
Thank you for bringing that up, Kent. It's fellowshipoffaith.org. We're here out of McHenry, Illinois, which is about an hour northwest of Chicago. We broadcast everything online, so if you're out of area and you want to check us out on Sundays at 10 a.m., catch us there. But we really always encourage you that if you're out of area, it's important to connect in person with a local church community, and we can help you with that. So reach out to us, and we can help you find a good church in your area, and a good group of believers to help you on the discipleship journey of learning who Jesus is and how to serve him in this world. This podcast goes live every Wednesday at 12:30 Central. We thank you for catching us today, but if you've missed past episodes or you want to catch us at an off time, you can always catch us on podcast. Just go questions you never thought you could ask in church on Spotify, Apple, or anything else. You'll find it. Or go on our website at fellowshipoffaith.org and go to FOF Plus, and you can catch past recordings there. If we didn't get to your question today, it's in our inbox. We will get to it in future weeks. I know we got more Advent and Christmas questions coming our way, plus a whole lot more of every stripe and variety. It doesn't just have to be about that. So before we cut out, 815-314-0363. Text your questions into 815-314-0363. Want to thank you for the questions you're asking. Keep asking them. God bless, and we hope you have a great week.
Questions you never